Um, that my writing group, if it weren't for my writing group, neither book may have been completed, because they're the ones that held my hand and encouraged me and kept me going. And and just made me come sit at this spot every single day and write something. And that's how my book got done. So.
All right. So this is the Right Launch Group, and we are proud to support Barbara in the day of her release, which is also, I don't know if you've checked the numbers, but the book is #1 on Amazon on some categories right off the bat on the day of its release. So you're #1 on some categories, #2, and that's it means that you've got some pre-sales and you also got some sales today. So let's turn it over to you for a little bit, and then we'll have some questions go on.
Okay, thank you. I think I'm going to start by showing you the books. Can't believe it's here. And I'm just going to read a little bit out of the book, give you an idea what it's like. And then we can just talk, have questions or whatever. Okay, this is chapter 26, which I called Cliches Are Generally Unhelpful. This chapter is the heart of the book. If you're thumbing through, stop here for the basics. There will always be people who don't know how to respond to grief with compassion and empathy. There will be people who say the wrong things, talk about themselves, or ignore your loss completely. You can be fairly confident that your condolences will be appreciated if you follow these guidelines. Our culture avoids talking about death, so we rely on these cliches. Some of these statements are more harmful than helpful. Grievers, please safeguard yourself by being prepared for insensitive comments and unrealistic expectations. Try to stay away from negative people. Hopefully, compassion will be better communicated someday. When communicating with the griever, don't start sentences with "you should" or "at least." There's some truth to some of these statements, but not in the early stages of grief, when the focus should be on the heartache of the loss. And then I list some common "you should" statements. You should have seen it coming. You should eat something. You should be thankful you have more kids. You should feel better by now. You should be thankful it could have been worse. You should get out more. You should try yoga or meditation. You should get some rest. You should see a therapist. You should be thankful it was painless. You should put on a cheerful face around the kids. A time will come when yoga, meditation, and therapy can be suggested, but unless the loss debilitates the person and needs immediate help from a doctor or therapist, wait a few months for these suggestions. The next thing people say is, "I'm sorry for your loss," which is fine. It's a fine thing for most people to say. It's the #1 thing we hear when we know someone has experienced a death. Most people accept this as it's intended, but not everyone does. Some people dislike hearing "I'm sorry for your loss" because they think of being sorry as an apology, which is one definition. And then I'm going to skip around. Another thing people say is, "I know how you feel." Comparing grief, again, it's not about you. We talked about this earlier, but it's worthy of a reminder. This could be one of the least comforting things to do and say. I'll even go as far as saying it will piss some people off, and rightly so. If we compare our grief to theirs, we're not focused on the grieving person. It's human nature to be reminded of our own grief when we hear of a similar loss. But this is not our moment. This is not the time to tell someone who lost his wife to cancer that you lost your mom to cancer and go into a story about it. What if you too have lost your wife to cancer? You can say something like, "I lost my wife to cancer also, so I have an idea of how much you're hurting." Other moms who've experienced losing a child to suicide or overdose have said this to me. I find it comforting because I know they get it and I'm not alone. I try never to say I know how you feel. This doesn't need much explanation, but here are a few examples. A woman in a grief group told another mom, "I know how you feel. I saw someone killed in a car accident," when she learned her daughter had died from COVID. What? This makes no sense at all. The person saying it isn't thinking about you and your loss. They're thinking about their own unrelated experience. Another mom had someone compare her son's loss to a dog's loss. Now, I love dogs. I'm surprised mine aren't jumping all over right now. And mine are my babies, but Losing a beloved pet and losing a beloved pet is heart-wrenching. It carries its own special type of grief. But to compare a dog to a human son is beyond insensitive. It's insulting. Okay, and then I go on. I'll just name a few more things people say. God wanted him home, and there's like a whole list of God phrases like you'll see him in heaven again. It was God's will. God needed him more than you did. God knows what he's doing. Don't question him. None of those I find very comforting at all. Then there's the people that will tell you to get over it. And those are unrealistic expectations. As I mentioned, 3 months after I lost Keven, someone told me I needed to snap out of it. I was shocked, but I knew he was really saying, it hurts me to see you suffering like this. I want you to feel good, not bad. Still an inappropriate thing to say, but he didn't know any better. He had never lost a child. Please keep in mind, everyone grieves differently. Moving from the initial devastation of a loss to coping and moving on takes time. It may take one person a year. It may take one person a year to want to socialize again, another only a few months or less. We're all unique, and that's a good thing. And I'll just read a few more things that people say. They're no longer suffering. I'm here for you, and then not be there for them. What will you do now? No, I'll read this part, Therese, because it relates to Denise. Sorry, you guys. As I wrote this chapter, my sister received a call from her best friend, Denise. Denise lost her 53-year-old husband unexpectedly to a heart attack. I'm in shock as my fingers hit the keyboard. It was completely unexpected. He left behind 2 children, 19 and 15, and was the main financial supporter of the family. Naturally, one of the first things my sister and I thought was, how is she going to get by without Rob? This thought crosses our minds because we care and we worry about the future of our friends. It can be overwhelming for the griever to hear your concerns right now. There's a combination of numbness and devastation that seems to happen at the same time. Asking this question too early could be the tipping point for someone who hasn't had time to process. There's nothing wrong with this question if asked by a very close friend, but timing is everything. Time heals all wounds. What can I do for you? What can I do for you? Actions speak louder than words. People who genuinely care and want to show support ask, what can I do to help? Or let me know what you need. On the surface, this seems generous and kind because it is. Most grievers can't think in early grief. It's hard to even remember the first few days after losing Keven. I was in a fog. Nothing seemed real to me. I didn't know what my needs were. In early grief, the emotions are on overload, and there's a long list of things that must happen right away. So rather than putting the griever on the spot to come up with something, it's more helpful to offer to do something specific, which I discuss in a moment. First, I want to share an example of what actionable support in early grief looks like. I was very fortunate in early grief because my then boyfriend, Peter, immediately drove 7 hours to be by my side. He quietly took care of everything and allowed me to do whatever I needed to do. Cry, respond to messages, curl up in a ball, stare into space. If I needed a hug, he was there. If I needed to be alone, he understood. He'd known Keven for 4 years and he was grieving too, but he put my needs first. The smallest things seemed overwhelming to me. Peter took care of the day-to-day for my sister and me, cleaning, cooking, shopping, the pets, and so forth. He waited on us, brought us water, gave us hugs, and made sure we ate. He also helped me shop for something to wear, drove the clothes to the mortuary, and helped me pick out music for the memorial video. He had no expectations of me, which I didn't realize until later. He instinctively knew to go with the flow. I experienced a hurricane of emotions that were unpredictable and intense. If you know someone in early grief, let them go through the emotions. Along with Peter, I had several close friends stop by, and some offered to get flowers with vases for the service. They brought food and paper products and sat and listened to me croak out the story and repeat myself over and over. I lost my voice because I screamed so much upon finding Keven. Not all of us have someone like Peter by our side or friends who know just what to do to help. Here are some questions you can ask in the early days of grief before a memorial service. And then I just list some of the things you can ask, like, do you need help writing an obituary or a eulogy? Do you need help creating the video montage? Is there anyone you need me to call, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Anyhow, I think I've read enough. I just want to say that earlier in the book, I said, all of us do this. I say the wrong things. I felt like I was preaching in this chapter because you hadn't read the previous chapters, but we all do, because nobody really talks about what should you say. And I just, after losing Keven, that's when I recognized it the most. I recognized it after losing Anthony, but after losing Keven, it was like, wow, people are saying things that are hurting me, and they don't mean to. I never held it against them or got mad at them or bitter or anything. I just thought, this is what I do too. This is what we all do. We all say these things because it's just what naturally comes to our mind. We've heard it over and over all our lives. And so that's what prompted me to write the book in the first place, just to, help us treat each other more sensitively when we're going through the worst possible thing in the world.
So we'll open it up for questions, but I'll start to make it easy for everybody. So I know that your first book, Keven's Choice, was a memoir and had to do with your son and that loss. This one has to do with how people can support others through loss. Was this book any easier to write?
Yes, it was. For one thing, it's way shorter. It was easier to write because the other book was my heart. It was my heart. I was still so early in grief. It was almost like I was on autopilot the whole time. And it was just something I had to do. It was like I had to do it. It was this compelling need to get this book out there. And this book was more like I was relaxed. I had a purpose. And I used my mind more on this book, and I used my heart more on the other book.
Did you ever, like, when you got some insensitive comments, especially some of the ones that you read, and the one that really stuck out was like, God wanted him more than you did. Did you ever snap at insensitive comments, or did you ever like go to this internal place, like, if that's what God wanted, like, screw God? Like, did you ever go?
Oh yeah. In my head, I was thinking, what do you mean God needed him more than I did? That's ridiculous. I need him. I did the most insensitive thing I think I heard was when a friend of mine, a good friend that I've known since high school, someone I really care about, he cares about me. He said, when he heard Keven took his life, he said, well, at least my wife and I raised our kids right. And I just stood there and went, what? Did I hear him correctly? And he didn't realize what he was saying. He just didn't realize it. He never would have said that, at least to me, if he realized what he was saying was, well, it's your fault he died because you didn't raise him right. I just didn't say a word. I just smiled and said, well, good seeing you, and walked away. But yeah, that's not the right thing to say to somebody. So it's like, you just have to think before it comes out of your mouth, is this going to hurt that person? What am I really saying to that person?
Anyone have any questions out there?
I love how you selected people to share their stories. That really added so much to the book, and just want to know about that process and how did you connect with the people?
Oh, I agree. That's my personal favorite part of the book, is the other people's stories. In fact, we have one of them here with us today. Margie is in my writing group, and she shared a story about losing the love of her life partner. And I decided to ask some other people because obviously I don't know what that kind of loss is. I shared sibling loss. A young lady shared about losing her brother. I shared about, or I had someone share about watching his wife's health deteriorate to the point where she can't take care of herself anymore. I shared a story by a mom who had her son, who was unarmed, shot by the police and killed. I had, a pet loss. I mean, I've experienced that one, but I had someone else write that story. Those are the stories. And I just thought, who do I know that has a good story that might be willing to do this? And three of the people from our writing group, Margie, Mike Duffy, and who else? Heidi. Heidi's not with us anymore. That's why it took me a minute to remember.
She's not in the writing group. She's still
Not in the writing group. She's with us. She's not dead. She's with us.
What do you say to someone that lost someone in their writing group? Oh.
So thanks, Paula.
Yeah. What about, do you cover in the book, say very often when there's loss, the people experiencing the loss will do very self-destructive behaviors because, what they say is, everyone grieves in different ways. Do you cover how to handle that at all?
I touch on that, but that isn't like the main focus of the book, but I do touch on that. And my number one thing that I recommend, and I am not the only person here who has lost a child, the number one thing that helped me, and I'm not going to get emotional, I'm just going to say it, is finding a group of other mothers and fathers and siblings who had lost someone to overdose. I found that when I lost Anthony. And being around people that understand your specific loss has been, for me, the most helpful because no one else will truly get it. And Maggie's here today. Maggie founded the group that I belong to, and she and I have become very close over the years. But this is Maggie, and she found solace for hope after she lost her son. And it was, what year was it? 2010? It was.
Yes, I lost my son Mitchell in 2010, but the group started in 2012.
Yes.
Yeah,
And then
it's almost 11 years.
Yeah, and I found her in 2015, and that's my biggest recommendation because people do relate best to somebody that can really understand. I don't have to explain myself to Maggie or other mothers that have lost someone. They already know how I feel, and we know what to do for each other. It's the other people that may not understand how to be helpful. I don't think I answered your question.
Well, that's a lot like addictions too. People that other addicts understand the addiction and they're not active and they're supporting each other. I guess my question having to do with that is, besides the stories, did you think of other people outside of yourself when you were developing the text to this?
Oh yeah, definitely. Definitely.
And how long did it take to write this book?
Wow, that's a good question. Let's see. I think I started it I think I started it in December. That's when the idea popped in my head. And then I was finished writing it in April. And then from April to August is when it went through, cover design, editing, all that good stuff.
And do you have a writing routine? Do you have a question, Josh?
Oh, no, sorry. I'm trying to get my phone situated right so I can hear it a little bit better.
Oh, just hi, how you doing?
Oh, how you doing? I'm doing well. I'm doing well, my guy.
So any other questions? Margie, you have one?
Yeah, I was wondering, I mean, in my experience with grief, in some ways it never changes. So I was wondering if, like, to write this, you processed it in a gazillion different ways, and does it help at all? I guess that's kind of a stupid question.
There are no stupid questions.
In some ways, nothing helps,
But
but
there are.
I don't know. nothing really changes how deep the hurt is, and it will never go away. But I think we learn to live within that pain, and we learn what we could do personally for ourselves to help us through each day. I mean, it's kind of day by day. Some just lie in bed and I can't do anything. I just cry all day. Teresa knows, she sees my bad days and she has bad days. I think it's a matter of acceptance also. That's really hard to accept, that you'll never see this person again, that they're gone forever. So I think once I got over that he's really gone, I just had to start living my new life. I became a different person, and I just had to start living my new life. I think grief changes, but it never really to love, and love person harder is.
Yeah. Oh, I mean, I have some insider information. So today's also, you decided to release this book on the anniversary of Kevin's death. You find that was a good decision, an afterthought, or?
No, the first thing I thought this morning was, why the hell did I do this to myself? I woke up and started crying, and I'm like, I have to be on today. I mean, I feel super comfortable in front of all of you guys, but later, I don't know who's going to be on this virtual launch thing. And I'm going to have to try and be professional and everything. It was not a good idea. I don't think it was a good idea, except my dear friend Maggie said something this morning, and that's what I'm hanging on to today. It's like, Keven is giving you his strength through love to get through today. And he is, because I feel him around me. I always do, but really intensely today. I feel like he's proud of me and he's happy for me. And he's like going, what the heck, Mom? I can't believe you did this. And so, yeah.
I said that you are being powered by Kevin's love
That's
today.
what it was.
Yeah.
You could tell I was struggling to remember. the
That's
exact
okay.
word.
Same thing.
Bonnie, you have a question?
Not a question, but I wanted to say, do you see the light coming? I know it's shining in above Josh's head before, as you were talking about Keven. Did everybody see that?
Oh,
Yes, I saw it.
oh, wow.
Yeah.
It's the sun. Hi, honey.
Mhm.
They love to give us signs. They love to give us signs.
We're not allowed to give feedback, or we are allowed to give feedback, or
Yeah, this is an open forum.
it was beautiful, Barbara. It was really beautiful. I remember when I was in the group and you were like, I don't think I'm going to do it anymore. And everybody was like, do it, do it, do it, do it. And, like when I haven't been on social media much, but, I saw the 1 minute that I went on, whatever, I saw that it was coming along, and then I got the invitation to be on the team, and I wrote the review, and I'm just you're so courageous, and I'm so proud of you, and I'm glad to be a part of it. And what else was there to say? Oh yeah, so I read the book just right after my best friend's dog had passed, and it was very helpful. It was really very helpful. Not necessarily, I mean, it was great what your friend wrote, the chapter about the dog and all that, but all the stuff that you said really, really helped me to know. And I've lost my heart, I know what, but I was like, maybe just don't say that, a lot of the things I was like, maybe just hold back and just try to listen more. And so I've been listening a lot and sitting with him as we, we watch Theo's videos and all that, but it was really, really helpful. And your experience in losing, Keven and Anthony and their friends and all that, really, there's no greater way for me, one alcoholic helping another. There's no better way for one grieving person to help another person. So it was a beautiful thing that you did.
Thank you, Bonnie.
And that being said, you can never expect when bad things are going to happen. Barbara, do you recommend people going out and buying this book immediately before something happens?
Of course. I just want people to buy the book because I think it's helpful. You don't know when something's going to happen. I'm a tip volunteer, so I get called to scenes where someone has just died, and I was counting them up the other day. Every single one of them out of 20 calls so far has been completely unexpected. None of them were related to an illness. They were all a surprise heart attack, an accident, an unknown death. I mean, people just die. And so, yeah, you never know. I don't take any day for granted, because just driving to the grocery store, you could get killed. You could drop dead of a heart attack. That happens so often. I see that all the time now, and it's alarming. We just have to love on the people we care about and appreciate them, because you just don't know.
Thank everybody for coming and sharing Barbara's release. And that's really, really, the really great thing. And congratulations on that. And, many, many large amounts of sales on it.
Thank you guys for showing up. It means so much to me. Thank you for everything. Tanya, I'm so nice. It's so nice to meet you and see you. I can't wait to talk to you more. So anyhow, thank you guys.